so let's move on. Why the pain? So there's a few very obvious reasons why pain exists for this period of our life. And this is quite relevant. This is why I teach this course for women at this point in their lives, because what's relevant changes, and there are a few things that are extremely relevant that you need to know. So work is one. I had someone say to me last week that she has a shoulder injury and it's skeletal. It's her bone. The bone's causing the problem. The bone is never the problem. The problem is that you're imbalanced in your body. So when you're sitting all the time, you're going to start getting very tight through the chest here, because you're in this position. Your bodies are clever. They're going, okay, you want to be in this position all the time. We'll do what we need to do to support you in that position. So the muscles are reactive. They're reacting to your habits, your habitual environment. So you're getting really tight across here, which means you're getting really weak across your upper back, which means your posture starts to change. Your core switches off because you're in this slouch, and your neck suddenly has to do everything. Same with the lower back. Your hips get tight. So when you're sitting at a desk all day long, it can be a real problem, because it's teaching the body very basic, in a very basic form, that this is what you need. So we need to make sure that we're incorporating things that take us out of those positions, that change that narrative for the muscles, so that we can create a bit of strengthening in the weaker muscles, a bit of opening in the tight muscles, and try and rebalance the body, because your pain is coming from an imbalance, whether that's because of tightness or instability, or it's now become an injury. Maybe you have a disc issue or some issue around the actual bone, the bone spurs or bursitis, those kind of things. All of those things come as a result of imbalance. So working on the balance of the body, getting everything really nicely aligned is going to really help. I'm a hairdresser, really struggle with work since fibromyalgia. Yeah, so in my course we do a little bit on fibromyalgia, actually, because it's debated. It's a autoimmune. It's a little bit debated over whether it is actually autoimmune, but there are some things that you can do to help with fibromyalgia. And yes, it's very common in menopause. Very common in menopause. In fact, I have lots of clients with fibromyalgia. I feel like it's something that's actually increasing in diagnosis recently, over the recent years. I feel like the last couple of years, there's been a lot more diagnosis. And I don't know whether that's a good thing or not, because the treatment plans for fibromyalgia are fairly sketchy at the moment. But absolutely, strengthening, getting some mobility, getting good space in the body will help with the symptoms of fibro. So what else might be going on? You might be a postural thing. If you're a hairdresser, it's going to be a postural thing. Same as if you're sitting at a desk, you're like this. You're having to work very hard with parts of the body and not all of it. But you might also be tall. You know, I know I have a lot of clients that are tall, and ever since they had that initial growth spurt when they were a teenager, they've had pain, and it's never quite gone away because they've never quite managed to recreate that balance. So this might be something that's been ongoing for years and years, but it's now becoming a big problem, something that you can't ignore anymore. And that is as a result of age, menopause. Menopause is a huge factor here. Your hormones are changing, and as your hormones change, things happen physically in the body. Your muscle mass reduces by 1% every year. So if you start perimenopause at 40, by the time you're 60, you're going to have 20% less muscle mass. Now, muscle mass is important, incredibly important for bone density. It's important for control and stability, and again, balance, keeping that balance through the body. The muscle mass will reduce the wear and tear on the skeleton. So it's going to be really useful for things like osteoporosis or arthritis. And arthritis is something that can come on in later life, you know, and quite often we've earned it. We've earned a bit of arthritis. You know, we've had full and busy and impactful lives, but the arthritis can be a real pain. And we want to get to a point where we try and keep that at bay for as long as possible. And way to do that is to increase your muscle mass, or try and increase your muscle mass. So that's a big thing that happens in menopause, a big change that occurs. And so that teenage pain now becomes an adulthood pain that's becoming more and more dominant in your life. It's taking over your life. It may be an old injury that's coming back to haunt you. Now, there are lots of ladies I see. I don't want to say all of them, but I'd say 90% of the people I see have an undiagnosed core trauma. So whether that be a pregnancy that's created a separation in the abdominals, whether that's undiagnosed, most people don't know they have that. And most women's separation doesn't go back after pregnancy, by the way. Most of us end up with a little gap, about like this, maybe a centimetre. I've got a gap, bigger in certain areas, but it's still there. It's not about the back gap. I don't care about how big the gap is. It's about building the tension underneath it to make sure that gap isn't going to be a weak point. Hernias, I had a lady the other day who said to me, oh no, I think my pregnancy was fine, I was never told about anything like that. Oh, but I do have a hernia at my belly button. That's your gap. That's your gap causing the hernia. So 9 times out of 10, this is one of the things I see. And often I'll do the pain quiz that's on my website and people will say, yes, I know how to engage my core. And then we'll start talking about their pelvic floor and they'll say, oh no, but no, I do struggle to get to the loo on time. And that's pelvic floor. So, yeah, I do have a bit of a neck injury. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be linked to your pelvic floor. So you may have some core trauma that you don't know anything about. It may be diastasis recti, the separation. It may be pelvic floor. It may be that you had a C-section, you had some trauma to the muscle. But a lot of that is undiagnosed. And again, remember, your pelvic floor and your core all decreasing in muscle mass over the period from your perimenopause onwards. So all of those injuries that you didn't even know were there are becoming more and more inflamed in the background. They're becoming more and more of a problem in the background. And those injuries are creating issues elsewhere. So an old injury that you haven't effectively treated can cause a big problem somewhere else in your body. So often people don't know that stuff. And breaks, sprains, things that have happened in the past, if you've had an ankle injury or a sprain that you never properly rehabbed, it's always been a bit uncomfortable, maybe you struggle to mobilize the foot properly, or you pronate or you supinate, all of that stuff is going to impact on it all the way up the body. So it will end up causing problems in your core and then potentially your lower back. It just creates compensation patterns that change the balance of our movements. So okay, and with all these things, life with it can become really life limiting. Now, the mistakes I see, just to say on this one, are things like just stretching. So lots of you will know things that you can do to make yourself feel better. You know, you might go, okay, I know if I do that little bit of time on the foam roller each day, I feel better. But most of us aren't doing it. Most of us are putting our foam rollers next to the telly, hoping that that will remind us. And then, you know, we just find a way of ignoring it and we just don't do it. So knowing what you need to do and not doing it is a big problem. But then only doing that thing can also be a big problem, because just stretching isn't going to be enough. Because as you know from working with a massage therapist, for example, or going for manipulation at the osteopath, it can provide very, very quick pain relief. But within 3 or 4 weeks, you're back there. They might crick your back and you come out and you feel $1 million. But like I said before, if your muscles are tight, you've had your back cricked, you come out, you feel great, you've got your posture right, you're feeling upright, you're switched on. But over the course of the next few days, your muscles are going to start to pull you back. So unless you're actively doing something to support the position that the osteopath has put you into, which they've done a great job at doing, but unless you've got the muscle to support that and the mobility to stop restricting, it's not something that's you're going to be able to maintain. It's not a long-term solution. And most osteopaths, physios, chiropractors, massage therapists that I know, that I work with, don't want to see you long term. Their job is there for 5 or 6 weeks, get you out of acute pain, move you on. And I'm guaranteed if you've seen a physio, or don't want to say a good one, if you've seen a decent physio, they will have told you to go and find some form of strengthening, or they will have sent you away with exercises to do that are going to help you to build up that strength. The other mistakes I see is not doing anything. And life is busy, life gets in the way, and I completely understand that. Not doing anything and not knowing where to start. I mean, We've all been there. Where the hell do I start? And sometimes you just need someone to tell you so that you can take it off of your plate, take it off of your to-do list, and just be told what to do. And I feel like that with work stuff, like my bank, my taxes, all of that stuff. It's overwhelming. So I employ someone to tell me, what do I need to do each week? What do I need to do each month? And be accountable. They send me emails, they remind me, they keep me on track. That's what we need often with our bodies too. It's why people, pay personal trainers. Aggravating it, some of the things you might be doing might be making it worse. So for example, if you're really mobile and you're stretching all day long, you're going to be just exacerbating the problem. You need to be doing some strengthening, but you might not know that. If you have an abdominal separation and you're thinking that doing loads of sit-ups is going to help your core, it's not. It's going to make it worse. It's actually going to cause a problem. So doing the wrong thing can be a mistake that I see. No core support is a big mistake I see. Not putting time into working on your core. It sounds really boring, it's really dull, but it doesn't have to be boring or dull, and it doesn't have to be a lot of your time. Really, really doesn't, to have big effects. One of the things I work on is bang for your buck. I want to make sure that what you're doing is getting a fast, actionable result for you quickly. Core support, living with diastasis recti or living with incontinence, living with things like stress incontinence or frequency incontinence, and thinking that that's a problem that you can kind of patch up with pads or just, living with it. And that's a big mistake I see. But also not factoring in menopause and the changes that you're experiencing from menopause. I know there's a lot of bad advice out there about what exercise you should be doing in menopause, and I see people powering through their HIIT classes, or they're running, and that's not to say you can't do all that stuff, but it has to be balanced with mobility, strengthening, stretching, balancing work. A HIIT class in your 50s is not going to do a lot for you. But we are as a society kind of stuck in this I must burn, exercise is about burning calories, and honestly it's really not. Your muscle mass will do that for you. So tell me in the chat what rings true. I'm just going to refer back. Justine, mine's related to arthritis, particularly in my hips and knees, so all out of alignment and walk differently. Really, I mean, this is exactly what I mean, Justine, that that one thing, that one niggle can become such a big problem. But the problem is that when it's a small niggle or just one thing, we tend to just ignore it, and it's only when it becomes bigger or more overwhelming that we address it. So let's